3 demerit points and fines starting at $400, and still the number of drivers ticketed for distracted driving shows no signs of abating. Worse, distracted driving was a significant factor in making this past Labor Day weekend the deadliest in 20 years. Why is it so hard to get people to put down their devices and focus on the road? To help us examine this problem, we welcome Sergeant Kerry Schmidt. He's Media Relations Department with the Highway Safety Division for the Ontario Provincial Police. Dr. Heather Manson, Chief of Health Promotion, Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention with Public Health Ontario. Pamela Faselli, Vice President, Knowledge Transfer and Stakeholder Relations with Parachute Canada. That's an organization aimed at reducing injuries. And Jesse Hirsch is here. He's the founder of MetaViews Media Management Limited and co-founder of the Academy of the Impossible. Great to have everybody here. Thanks so much for coming in. I've been debating whether or not to say something. And, do you think it's going to be like Trump Clinton here? You need the bulletproof vest?
Well,
what's the story?
I don't know. I'm hoping we have a good panel here.
This is usually a very civilized place for a discussion. But okay, if you want the vest, that's okay. Back in May, a couple of very provocative billboards popped up in Toronto. They looked like they were ads for a funeral home. And if you went to that funeral home website, this is the message you found. Sheldon, roll it, please. If you're here, you've probably seen our Text and Drive billboard. And if you have, you probably came to this website to tell us what horrible people we are for running an ad like that. And you'd be right. It is a horrible thing for a funeral home to do. But we're not a funeral home. It turns out that the group that came up with this unusual campaign did not want you to buy flowers or monuments. They want you to see these statistics. In 2013, 81 people in Ontario were killed in collisions involving an inattentive driver. And this one, drivers engaged in text messaging are 23 times more likely to be involved in a crash. Okay, Sergeant, just how prevalent is distracted driving on the roads of the province of Ontario these days?
Well, sadly, it is one of the leading causes of death and injury on our highways. We see it over and over again. It's part of our big four: distracted, aggressive, impaired, and seatbelt use. But right now, distracted and inattentive driving is the #1 killer on provincial highways.
It's worse than drunk driving now.
We're seeing more people dying because of distraction, inattention, double what we've seen in alcohol or drug-related fatalities.
Pamela, I'd like to know if there is a particular kind of driver who feels particularly inclined to text and drive.
Well, we see from the evidence that young drivers are at higher risk. They're also novice drivers. They're still learning as well. So we've got a number of compounding factors that make them, at higher risk for crashes and fatalities.
Any idea why it would be the younger people who do it?
Well, I think that they're so used to having their phones with them, especially, texting and driving, that they find it hard to put the distraction down. And they've always, young people always feel like it's never going to happen to them, that they're a bit invincible. And I think at the time in their lives when they're, starting to learn to drive and driving for the first few years, we want them to get into the good habits of not using their phones and being distracted behind the wheel.
Jesse, you drive a motorcycle, don't you?
Yeah? I do, yeah.
Have you ever texted and driven on a motorcycle? That would be challenging.
I've been tempted, I will admit. I mean, it's one of the reasons I've thought about getting a smartwatch, is at least that way it might be physically possible, although suicidal perhaps at the same time.
Mm-hmm. How successful do you think we've been in getting people to ignore the phones while they're driving?
Not at all. I mean, certainly from my perspective as both a motorcyclist and a cyclist, it's not only pervasive, but I think a lot of people almost take pride in getting away with it. The lengths that they're taking increasingly to try to hide it. And look, I don't want to pretend to be holier than thou. I'll put it on the table. In the past, driving a car, I too have committed distracted driving. Now, granted,
before the law came in?
Before the law came in, but I'm just sort of acknowledging, I think everyone has at some point, and I'll turn it around to the panel. I think it's good for us all to admit that we've sinned at some point. And I think distracted driving is not so much about those other people. It's about all of us and the lengths that we need to take to be responsible drivers once we acknowledge that it's a problem.
Dr. Manson, what is it? I mean, the stats are so clear on this. What is it that makes people think that, boy, I just don't understand the problem with distracted driving?
Well, we did a study at Public Health Ontario, and we found that among youth and young adults, 90% of them know about the law, and the overwhelming majority think that it's extremely risky and extremely dangerous. But despite that, they just haven't internalized that. They don't think it's going to happen to them. They mostly haven't experienced the consequences. So there's kind of a cognitive distortion about, yeah, sure, I know it's out there, I know it's a problem, but it's never going to happen to me, and I don't really know anyone to whom it's happened, either having a collision related to distracted driving or getting a ticket or getting stopped by an officer.
Let me pick up on the ticket. They've increased the penalties, haven't they?
It's gone up incrementally over the last several years, up to $490 right now, fines up to $1,000 if a justice of the peace levies that kind of penalty in a court. But yeah, there's 3 demerit points associated as well. And we're trying to make it, or the government has made it as a deterrent. Unfortunately, as an officer out there patrolling and seeing it, we see it over and over again, and not just down the highway in open roads, in stop-and-go traffic, in residential and urban areas with traffic, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, everybody involved, and it's ongoing all the time.
How is a nearly $500 fine and 3 demerit points not deterrent enough for a 22-year-old who can't possibly have that much disposable income to blow on a ticket?
Well, what we found in our study was that the majority of young people actually don't think it's going to happen to them. In fact, our study found that they think, even amongst kids that text frequently in 6 months, that they're actually unlikely to be stopped by a police officer or get a ticket. They just don't think it's going to happen.
Go ahead.
Well, and I also think that there's been some research done around the fact that these are what they call administrative penalties, so fines and demerit points, versus the criminal code charges that can be levied for impaired drivers. And so there may be a disconnect between how serious people feel distracted driving is because there are only these administrative penalties.
So if there were actual criminal charges, you think that might change behavior?
Well, there's some research going on as to whether that might actually have an impact on distracted driving, as we have seen success in the impaired driving.
Sergeant, how tough is it to actually catch somebody doing it?
Well, I think we can all admit that we see distracted drivers all the time, and a distracted driver looks just like an impaired driver, looks just like a fatigued driver. They're all over the road, they're weaving in their lanes, they can't maintain consistent speed. You can watch their head, they're bobbing up and down, and they're just completely unaware of their surroundings. They may be sitting in the left lane on a major highway with no one beside them, but they sit there because they think that's their lane of protection where they don't have to worry about cars coming in from both sides. For us as officers patrolling, we see this distraction. But the problem is we also need to see the device. And so having the device in your hand can sometimes be difficult for us to see it if they're hiding it down in their lap. You see them looking down at something, but we also, to prove it in court, we need to prove that they were actually holding a device.
If you are a distracted driver because you're futzing with your radio and trying to find a station, is that the same thing?
Well, that would be a different offense. The distracted driving penalty is specific to holding a handheld communication device. That's where the offense has been committed. So a lot of people think that just because they don't have the phone to their ear, that it's okay. They can go on speakerphone, they can hold the phone up in front of them. But that's obviously the problem. We have the penalties in place for the Highway Traffic Act, but when it comes down to criminal code or criminal offenses as well, there's the provision for criminal negligence or dangerous driving if they're going to that threshold, but it is a higher threshold of accountability for us to prove.
Now, you clearly look like a police officer today. Are there
Yes.
times when you go undercover or your colleagues go undercover in order to catch distracted drivers?
Do you know what? We don't even need to. It comes to the point where driving in a fully marked police vehicle beside another driver, they are so consumed in their activities of holding their phone, and they glance up and they're glancing up, but then they're looking down at their phone the whole time. They have no spatial awareness of what's going on. Sure, when I'm off duty and I'm driving a plain vehicle, absolutely, it's even easier to see them because there is sometimes that little bit of a halo effect where people are they're watching out for vehicles, but they're also watching out for vehicles with lights on their roofs.
Check the monitors here in the studio for a second. Sheldon, you want to bring this picture up? Because here's,
Yes.
those are cops, guys. Yeah. Those are cops trying to catch distracted drivers. Does that work?
It sure does, and we have done that kind of activity in the past as well, and we see that from time to time, stopping at a red light, stopping at a bus stop, in an urban area, again, just walking up beside pedestrians. Officers on bicycles can drive through urban traffic and just look at every driver. Officers on motorcycles, the same thing. They can go up right beside these cars and look at them. And sometimes even in slow rush hour traffic, I'll be driving along and just watching cars rolling by me, and they are so consumed with their phone. They have no idea what's going on in front of them. And you think about the number of collisions that we're getting called to, never mind the fatal collisions and the serious injury collisions, but just the simple fender benders that happen every single day that affect tens of thousands of people. We investigate about 70 to 75,000 collisions every year, just the OPP. And how many of those were because of some sort of distraction or inattention? And not necessarily just phones, but people not focusing on the road. When you're driving a vehicle, your attention has to be on driving.
This is the contrast. I mean, we're basically talking about shooting fish in a barrel. We're not talking about aberrations. We're not talking about rogue drivers. We're talking about a dominant culture. That the dominant culture currently, whether conscious or not, is that it's okay to use your device while driving. The law is taking measures to try to discourage people, but they're not being discouraged because we're still seeing this behavior rampant across the roads of Ontario.
You'll know about motives, and I bet you've seen the hit by Louis C.K. where he does that thing where you're stopped at a traffic light and you can't bear the notion of waiting even 10 seconds before you check and see whether you got a Facebook friend, coming in. What is with that?
Well, there's two sides to this. On the one hand, yeah, we live in an attention deficit society where we don't know how to be bored anymore. And the moment we have a free time, we turn to a screen. So there's that addiction element, but there's also an unconscious conditioning, right? I mean, take the Facebook ding, that sort of ping. They put a lot of money into designing that, and it sounds a lot like Pavlov's dog in terms of an experiment where you get a little dopamine. Oh, people like me. And then you keep coming back. And that's why I think that on the one hand, we're treating this as if it's a conscious decision, but it's actually unconscious behavior that I think will take a lot more than just penalties or even education to get people to start adapting in terms of what they do.
Pamela, I'm going to get you to comment first on this next clip that we're going to show, because the ad agency that just did the funeral home bit that we did at the top of the program also created a number of videos for the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, and here's one of them. Sheldon, please. I've seen that 30 times, and I just saw it again for the 31st, and I still shudder. I mean, it's just so powerful. Does that work?
We've seen other ads like that in workplace safety, and for a certain audience, for a certain period of time, it does draw their attention. But just as Jesse was saying, we're in a world where we see so many of these kinds of images that in the long term, they need to change them up, change the message, because they get immune to seeing those images, especially the audience that they're trying to reach, which is the young people. And so, yes, for a short period of time, it draws attention to that, but not over the long term. We need to use these types of tools in and amongst a comprehensive approach that includes education and enforcement and driver behavior changes and even the design of the vehicles to get at these kinds of issues.
Dr. Manson, I wonder if your research at all indicates a distinction that young people make between picking up the device and just seeing a message versus actually texting one out.
Well, that's a great question. And the video draws on this because we found that young kids who were part of our survey were more likely to think that sending a message was more dangerous than reading a message, and they were more likely to read messages than send them. But in fact, both of these are dangerous. And we were interested that the marketing company, in putting together this video, actually drew attention to the reading, that the young man in the video actually is reading the messages, not sending.
And he's not texting,
and he
is
gets into that very, very serious collision. So it is a problem, and young kids think that it isn't. They think that reading and sending are equally are different, but in fact they're equally problematic.
Equally problematic, but I mean, common sense would tell you that it's actually more dangerous to actually try to text than just read a message.
Well,
Is that fair to say?
I wanted to talk about this a little bit because, there's a number of different kinds of distractions that are happening. When you're looking at a cell phone, when you're texting a message or sending a message, you're visually distracted, you're manually distracted. But even the very act of listening to speech in a car, a hands-free cell phone, is going to cause you to be cognitively distracted. So in fact, there's a whole lot of different distractions going on, and they just all add up together to make this a really serious behavior.
You can't ban phone calls in a car, though, can you, Jesse?
Of course you can.
You can ban even the receiving of a phone call?
I mean, on the one hand, I think we're missing the fact that having a car is a privilege, not a right. So I even like the idea, I would like to see vehicle suspension, like having your vehicle seized right then and there and held for 7 days, similar to the sort of race of the going over 50 kilometers over the limit. I think it's those types of penalties that really allow people to understand both the impact of their actions, but also that there's immediate consequences, so they do get that feedback. I mean, I was almost laughing at your attempt to delineate between reading a message and writing a message, whereas the point is it's all distraction. I mean, the extent to which attention has become so difficult and focusing has become so difficult, I think does mean, yeah, no phone calls in the car at all.
Pull over.
No messages in the car, or just wait till you, why do we live in a world in which someone can't wait 30 minutes for you to get back to them?
Because we do.
Right, but I'm just saying, we can push back that a little. And I think that we're into this kind of instant gratification, because look, let's face it, sometimes you can't pull over. If you're on the 401, where are you going to pull over?
Right.
I think just accepting that when you're in the car, it's time for you to relax. It's time for you to focus. It's not time for you to communicate with friends and family and coworkers.
We've got another video that we want to show here. This, again, another part of the campaign aimed at younger distracted drivers in particular. Sheldon, please.
If I get a text, I look at my phone.
It's definitely texting.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Snapchat. I do Snapchat and drive sometimes.
When I was 21 years old, driving home from my college graduation ceremony, driver on his phone was so distracted. He turned left into the intersection at a red light. Another car, an 18-wheeler, swerved to miss him and hit my family's car. And the resulting collision actually killed both of my parents.
We edited that down, obviously. It goes on much longer, and I think actually the woman telling the story walks in and with a considerable limp to begin with. And by the end of the entire message, I mean, everybody's in tears. And it's, again, Pamela, it makes a very powerful statement. But how do you watch that and not change your behavior? I don't get it.
Well, I think it's the familiarity that, you know, you get into a car, you're familiar with getting into a car, you don't really see the danger. When you look at activities that are not usual for most of us, like I often use the example of bungee jumping, or some people it's just even getting on a plane, you think safety first. But when you go out and walk on the street or you get in a car, it's a behavior that you do all the time, and by and large, nothing happens to you when you do that.
We trust perfect strangers to sort of make sure they don't drive up on the sidewalk and kill us when we're walking or whatever.
So you don't think that it's going to happen to you, or you know, and younger people, they don't think it's going to happen to them, but we have found that they're more concerned about what they might do to their friends or what might happen to their family. And so appealing to that side of things, like, okay, if you don't really, you know, if it's not you you're worried about, it's your friends that you're worried about, you know, do it for them. Make that choice. And I think that's the other thing that Jesse was getting at earlier was this is a choice. It's a behavioral choice. And that's the good news and the bad news. It's a good news because we can actually make that choice to do something different, to turn off the phone, to put it in the back seat, to not, to have a rule not to use it in the car. But it's also the bad news in that as human beings, we're not very good at doing that over and over again.
Jesse, they've got websites and hashtags and all of the things young people like to try to make this more appealing to them. Do you think that kind of thing can work?
No, I don't think trying to persuade people, certainly at a theoretical level, is actually going to have an effect. I think consequences will have an effect. I think there's ways, you know, for example, how car companies are, I think, actually part of the problem, because their notion of hands-free, and when they talk about the technology they build into cars, it's still about trying to give the consumer everything they want. When maybe one of the messages here is, no, you can't have your phone in the car. You want a car, that's a great privilege, you can't have the phone in the car, period. But instead, we keep all this language of, well, here's this technology that allow you to verbally tweet and will allow you to dictate text messages back and forth. So granted, maybe your hands are on the wheel, but where's your mind? And where's your attention? And I think that's where we're giving people mixed messages that, you know, maybe this is an issue of discipline, that as long as you're, you know, really committed in the car, it'll be okay. Whereas I think it's entirely unconscious. If that phone is in reach and it goes off, you're going to reach for it, because that's what you do all the other times of the day. So to even have that phone or to even have that technology accessible, I think, adds to the dangerous situation.
Let's put this, Sergeant, into some kind of historical perspective here, because I remember when the initial campaigns against drunk driving came out,
Sure.
Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, organizations bringing to bear a lot of public consciousness on this, but it still took 25 years to get people to actually stop drinking and driving, right?
Yeah.
Before it became socially unacceptable.
Right.
Is that the kind of campaign we're facing this time?
Well, I think so. It's an ongoing battle, I guess. The seatbelt law has been in place for 40 years, but people are still driving without being buckled and being ejected and being killed. And one of our big causes of death and injuries. Impaired driving is certainly not eliminated because we still see it over and over again. Distracted driving is the same thing, and the feeling of invincibility and the fact that you've done it in the past. Someone who's been drinking at a bar and made it home safely, they have no idea how bad their driving was, but they made it home and they think their driving was pretty good. Same thing with a distracted driver. They've driven distracted so many times, and they think that because nothing happened, that they were a good driver. They have no idea how bad their driving was, and you can even see these drivers before they get their phones. Typically, they'll probably glance up, they'll take their foot off the gas, they'll slow down, they'll give themselves a little more cushion of space just to give them that buffer because they don't want to wreck. But again, it's one of those things, it can change in a heartbeat. Traffic stops, and now you're into the back bumper of somebody. Maybe nobody's hurt or killed, but you're in a wreck and traffic is snarled.
Dr. Manson, can you help us understand if there is sort of a different psychology at play between texting while driving and drunk driving?
Yeah, I think that there are differences, but one of the biggest differences that I would highlight is social norms. So currently we think about driving under the influence, drunk driving, as being really stigmatized. And so that people will help their friends or their family members, they'll tell them don't drink and drive.
Take away their keys, all
yeah,
that stuff.
exactly. Whereas with distracted driving, it's kind of the norm. People think it's the norm. We found that in our survey. Everybody's doing it. So I think that there is a difference in terms of the perception of what's the norm in our society. And once we start to get to a point where we're calling each other on, you're driving while distracted, don't, put that cell phone down, don't use it, don't text, don't listen, don't turn it on. That's, I think, when we're going to start to see some change. But both distracted driving and driving under the influence, they're both types of impairment, and they both cause cognitive impairment in our ability to respond and ability to react and put on the brakes in a timely way if there's a hazard on the road.
It did take a long time, though, before drunk driving became not a good thing to do, and everybody recognized it. How long do you think it'll take before texting and driving gets there?
Oh, I want to say I hope it doesn't take as long as it did with drunk driving, because that was enormous, massive societal effort, which was spearheaded by some very committed individuals. There was Mothers Against Drunk Driving. There was a whole social movement that happened. Can we accelerate that social movement for distracted driving would be a really important question.
Although, can you imagine the scenario? You've had lunch, and friends, you both get into the car, you say, okay, but before we go, give me your phone. I'm gonna hold your phone while you drive. I mean, right there, you gotta fight, let alone creating the culture in which someone goes, okay, here's my phone, where they physically hand it over because they accept that they just can't drive without checking it. That might help expedite it.
You're Mr. Technology, so let me follow up with this question here. With the success of Uber, is distracted driving becoming a problem in the ride-hailing business?
Oh, I would say it's central to the success of the ride-hailing business. I mean, there's fantastic research that looks at how Uber drivers are essentially controlled by the Uber algorithm. It tells them where to pick up the passenger. It tells them how to navigate through the city. When they don't have the passenger, they've got 15 seconds from when an alert comes to when they can hail it. So even though they all have those little mounts, so it's not physically in their hand, they're spending way more time staring at that screen than they are the actual road. And as a cyclist, I notice this in terms of its contrast with cabs. Like, at least cabs, are going to be a little cognitive distracted because of all the things going on. So as a cyclist, you sort of treat cabs with an extra level of distrust. But now I'm doing a pattern recognition to find Uber drivers because they're just as distracted as a cabbie, but they're not as easily identified. So you're constantly looking for that little phone in the window and the way in which the driver is constantly paying attention to that phone as another potential hazard when you're on the road.
Because the driver is always looking for a potential next customer or a pool to pick up along the way or that kind of thing?
Or if you think about the hierarchy of attention that a driver's going to allocate, the cyclist is almost always at the bottom of that hierarchy, right? They're rarely paying attention to people on two wheels. And so you, as the person on two wheels, you have to either A, make them pay attention to you, or be extra vigilant in terms of your own defensive stances, because there's all these distracted drivers going all over the place.
Sergeant, how much of all of what we're talking about today is an issue because businesses have an expectation that their employees will be available and plugged in whenever they want them?
Well, absolutely, and having that culture and talking to the companies and the bosses who have their workers out on the roads going on service calls or going on jobs. When the boss calls, you want to answer that phone call. And how many times have I stopped somebody and who are you talking to? You're either talking to your wife or your boss. And it's usually they're late for an appointment. There's an immediate emergency that they need to be aware of. It's really not an emergency. You know, there is an exception if you're calling 911, but calling the school that's saying you're going to be late to pick up your kids is not an emergency. You got to pull over and stop. And so we need to change that culture. You go to bed at night and you turn your phone off, you put it on the charge, you wake up in the morning and you have 10 messages waiting for you, and it's a fine. But yet you get in your car and you drive for 45 minutes, you can't have that. There's a culture of saying that you can't be away from being connected to your social networks for those 45 minutes. But there's so many things. You're in a meeting now, and you have your phone off on silent, and you're going to pick up your messages later. So we need to change that culture. We need to make it socially unacceptable, make it uncool, and give people the liberty to be able to put that phone down with pride and say, I will get my messages when I'm ready and able. And change your voicemail message to, if I'm driving, I'm not going to pick up the phone. So your boss knows, your family knows that there's a chance that I may be driving right now. So turn your alerts off. The fact that you see that little red light, you feel that vibration, or you hear that ding, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. You want to pull it out and find out what's going on. Turn it off. Just if you don't know, ignorance maybe is bliss, but it's not that important.
Got a few minutes left here, and I want to play, Sheldon, let's do one more example here. Chapter 7, this took place in Ottawa over the summertime. A motorcyclist used his helmet cam to record a video of a driver using her cell phone. Let's look at this video and then we'll chat. Okay, here we go. This is the helmet cam recording all this, and obviously someone's, okay, you're busted, you are stopped, but you are texting. And look at this, knock on the window. Knock on the window, ignored, still texting away, checking a message or doing whatever's happening. And she's not even looking up to receive the admonition of the cyclist who wants to be able to say, cut that out. And here we go, green light, and that person is obviously distracted and behind. Motorcyclist, not cyclist. But there we go. Caught, busted. You want to do anything with that footage, Sergeant? Oh, I guess that's out of your jurisdiction.
I know there was efforts that went to follow up on that. But if that was an officer knocking on the door, and we'd be knocking a lot louder, I guess, to get their attention. But she's ignoring the fact, and she's ignorant to the fact that she thinks she's in control. She's at a red light. It's okay. I'm allowed to do this. Well, you're not allowed to do it. It is a violation of the Highway Traffic Act. And if we are actually a community of drivers out on the roads and we want to act like a community and be a society that works together, that kind of behavior is completely unacceptable.
Now, for what it's worth, that got 1 million views on Facebook, and they did follow up the Ottawa police, and they did charge her with distracted and careless driving. Do we need to see more, this is maybe an exaggerated way of putting it, but vigilantism, for lack of a better expression, more vigilantism on the road to cut this down?
I don't know that I would support vigilantism, but I think certainly making it clear to your friends and family and to others that this isn't acceptable, absolutely, because it is that typical peer pressure that we see with young people, but also with all of us, that we want to be seen as socially acceptable for the most part.
Well, if we can, social shaming, if we're going to shame people, but getting involved and engaging another motorist, you don't know what these motorists are, and this motorcyclist could easily have lost his life. You look at the activity that happened post that interaction,
She zoomed past him.
It's not worth it. And we see it all too often. She zoomed past him, cut him off. Unbelievably dangerous. So call 911, call and report those kinds of drivers. We can't have that. We don't want to see vigilantism. We want to get involved and have the OPP or the police engage and disrupt or eliminate or take those drivers off the road. But taking law into your own hands doesn't usually end well.
Dr. Manson.
Yeah, that video shows another aspect of distracted driving, which is that when people are distracted, their field of vision narrows. She may not even have been aware of the motorcyclist beside her. She may have tuned out the knocking on the window. and that subsequent swerving, etc. In fact, her ability to pay attention was shrunken down in that moment of distraction.
But the fact that the post action, when she came up and cut him off, if she was actually ignorant of the fact that he was there, why did she come up and really blow his doors off and almost kill him? There was some, maybe there's some more interaction before that, but unbelievably dangerous, and that's not what we want to see.
It also speaks to the attitude that a lot of people feel entitled to use their phone in the car. They've decided that they are responsible enough and that they are capable. Your point about familiarity, I think, is spot on. So it's not just, I agree, social pressure is part of it, but there's a larger public discussion, a larger social discussion on why this is unacceptable, what the consequences are, and the fact that people are tuning out and are engaging in a kind of civil disobedience, even, if to use that phrase, I think speaks to the challenge we face ahead in terms of actually changing behavior, changing unconscious behavior that is increasingly ingrained.
Last minute here to go. Are we having that broader conversation as a society that Jesse thinks we need to have?
I think we talk about it superficially, or on the surface we talk about how we want to eliminate it, but do we actually put it into practice and actually make a difference? Are we actually changing our norms? For me, I get called to fatal crashes all the time, and to see the carnage and the outcome, and to go and visit these families that are now losing a loved one, it is absolutely heartbreaking, and it should not be happening. It is completely preventable, and we need to change our attitudes.
I also just have to point out that on the one hand, there's the conversation about how distracted driving hurts people, but there's the other question about how driving a car is killing the planet, right? The extent to which our automotive culture has created climate change and has created suburban sprawl and has created all these large environmental problems. The environmentalists have been warning us about that for 30, 40 years, and here we are in Toronto still loving our private vehicles. So I think all of this gets into a very larger question of social responsibility that, quite frankly, most people are happy to opt out of.
I want to thank all of you for coming in and having this conversation with us tonight here on TVO, and I hope you never have to make any more of those calls on families to tell them people are dead because somebody wanted to get that last text out.
Yes.
Carrie Schmidt, Pamela Fuselli, Jesse Hirsch, Heather Manson. Good of you to join us tonight here at TVO.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.